Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm Todd Nesloney, an elementary principal in Texas, and your weekly host of this podcast video, however you're choosing to consume it. Each week, I try to bring you people who have inspired, encouraged, or challenged me in one way or another and amplify their voices and allow them to tell pieces of their story in hopes that you can connect through their stories and get out there and share some of yours as well. I am so thrilled this week to have my special guest, Melanie Rucker, with me. Melanie, why don't you kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel honored. Like you say, if I can reach one person with my story, hopefully my time is well worth it. My name is Melanie Rucker. I am an elementary principal in Missouri, and it's my 22nd year in education. My special family, I have 3 daughters, and I have a new grandbaby as of last
Custodian to the
December.
front office, please. A custodian to the front office, please. Thank you.
You can tell I'm still at my school right now, and we're just going to get interrupted, but go ahead.
It's all good. It's all good. So my husband is also a teacher and has been for several years. So we're pretty educated minded at our house.
Awesome. So did you always know that you wanted to be a teacher?
No, actually, my dad was a public school teacher turned administrator. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom for a lot of years when my sister and I were little, and she's a teacher now, actually. So kind of how our world has always been spun around like that. But no, I actually, when I graduated high school, didn't know what I wanted to do. And it was kind of battle for my mom to get me to go to college to start with. So, and that kind of goes back several years of experiences. But I had started working at a group home where there were 8 adults with developmental delays that summer before college, and they were unable to do a lot of self-care things, and it just broke my heart because I just wanted for them to be able to do more. And it was at that point I decided I was going to go to school and help people somehow, maybe go into education. But when you kind of raise and educate, you think your goals might be bigger and better. So but at that point I decided I wanted to go into education.
Awesome. Now, you've got a really unique, interesting background and things like that. I know that you mentioned to me that second grade was a really pivotal year for you because at that young of an age, even then, you didn't want to be in school. Tell me a little bit about that.
That is very true. So just within the last few years, actually with my relationship with Jesus and as it's grown, I kind of spent life until then just things would happen, I'd move on, things would happen, would move on. And I wouldn't really process the why or what behind that. Because I'm, kind of the fear of pain, just like let it go and move on. And after that, after being saved, I thought, oh boy, let's really process your life and what has happened and what do you need to apologize for? And what are you so thankful to be forgiven for now? And so I started thinking about my why in education, which I always knew my why was children. And I always knew whatever decision I was going to make was for those children that I was educating. But I couldn't, and it was always about the kids, always about the kids. And I started thinking about just a few years ago, like going clear back to my story. And I remember in second grade, I actually was diagnosed with diabetes that year. And at the time I thought, how awesome is this? Because I'm going to need to go get a snack. And I will do that during reading time because reading is very painful for me. So it didn't matter what time reading was in the morning, I was getting a snack. So, and at that point in time, it was several years ago, the students didn't have the snacks in the classroom. I had to go to the kitchen, get my snack, whatever. So at the time I thought bonus because reading was not my thing. It was very hard for me. I did not like to read. Typically it was, a story that maybe I wasn't that excited about. I had a lot of energy. I didn't want to sit down. I didn't want to read. But that year, reading was the first thing every day of my school day. And so going to school I was not a fan of that. And I keep thinking if I would have started with math, how would that have looked different? Because I love math. So, and was a math teacher before I came to administration. So what would that look like if my day could have started with some choice with some flexibility. What does that look like for other children? So I did every morning at reading time go get my snack. So the only person that really called me on it was the custodian. And I have no doubt, I had amazing teachers. I have no doubt they all knew exactly what I was doing, but they didn't call me on it. So, but the custodian, when I first was diagnosed, she would say, "Oh, is it snack time?" And then shortly after it changed to, "Melanie, is it reading time?" And I would just smile and nod my head like she knew what I was doing. Right. And so did everybody else, I'm sure. But part of my why that I've been thinking about over the last couple of years is, why is that my story? I, in second grade, decided I did not want to finish school. And quite frankly, I only went to school half a day my senior year and worked the other half. So and then I told you earlier, like going to college was kind of, mom just said, "You're going, it's not an option." And so I appreciate that, but not everybody has those parents. And so I was the, little girl sitting in second grade. Dad was a teacher. Mom was a stay-at-home mom. So and looking at my second grade picture, nobody would have guessed that that girl was struggling, that there, without the flexibility, without the voice, without having a say in her education, at that point in life, would that have been different? Would my thoughts been different? And so that's kind of what I've been processing over the last few years and understanding more why I make the decisions that I make for children today.
Well, I think that probably gives you a great perspective into some of the kids and an easy way to connect with them because you've been there and you felt that way and you tried to get out of those experiences. So you taught for how many years?
Well, I taught for 5 years and I taught K-12 special education, which I loved. And then I taught sixth grade and was a self-contained sixth grade teacher. And then I went into administration after those 5 years. And as life turns, I ended up teaching again in about 2010 for a year. I taught middle school math and loved it. And but it was that year that I went back into administration here in the current district that I'm in. So in the classroom, I have 6 years and I have 16 years as a principal.
And you have been recognized as a distinguished national principal, right?
Well, no, not national. I
was period
this year. Yeah, I was nominated this year by my Northwest Missouri peers to be their distinguished principal and represent Northwest Missouri at the state level. And so I just did that in March. And so that was an honor. And I met a lot of great administrators through that. Our principal group in Northwest Missouri is very, very strong. And it's just an honor to be recognized by them because they are all, I'm as good as I am because of who they are. Right. And so it's just an honor to go represent them.
Do you ever struggle with that self-doubt of, am I as good of a leader as I hope to be?
Always. And I think it's because I push myself. And I'm a forward thinker and I'm kind of a two feet in type of leader. Because if I really think it's what's best for kids, we're all in. And I have an amazing staff that knows that's who I am. And I'm not going to say it's always the best choice, but it's the choice that I think is best at the time. And so we laugh about it. Like we have candid conversations about it. My staff knows they're amazing. And but if it's what's right for kids, and I truly believe it is, and I'm seeing it everywhere, then I'm probably going to jump to fit in. But yes, there's always self-doubt because I always want to be better. Right. Professional development is huge for me. And so anything I can do to just get better at what I can do, because I don't want another Melanie Ward sitting in my classes anywhere. I want to do what's right for all of them, no matter who or where they come from.
Well, in our conversations online, a little bit in person, I really felt like we had that kind of kinship together because, I'm the same way. It's like no matter what I do good or what I get recognized for, I still have all that doubt of am I good enough to be in this role? When you get in those moments of feeling insecure or doubting your self-worth, how do you pull back out what you know is true about yourself?
I think it's just a lot of self-reflection. I sit back and think about where I was even before the last few years. I think about the changes that I've made for the kids that we have. I think about the amount of information my teachers have at their fingertips, or how I can get that to them. I think about where we started this journey several years ago, and where are we now? And I think just a lot of self-reflection. And I feel like my calling is my calling for a reason. But I am a perfectionist, which is not always ideal. It can be a fault sometimes. And I just want everything as perfect as it can be for our kids and for my teachers as well. And so just through that self-reflection, I try to decide what it is we need to continue, and maybe what it is we need to step back and look at a little bit differently. And but always kids bottom line. And I have a lot of conversation with students about their thoughts, and about, do they have a choice in what they're doing day to day? And is there room flexible for them? Like, if they don't like reading, they shouldn't have to start the first hour and a half of the day of reading. Because of how my system is set up now, our first half hour is reading or enrichment type of things. So I kind of laugh about that. But kids are able to do things in small groups or fun hands-on activities. And so it's a little bit different than sitting reading, out of a book. Right. That they may not enjoy.
So, I'm thinking back to your 7, 8-year-old self, the Melanie in second grade, when you struggled with that idea of being in school and feeling like it was the place for you. If you could go back and tell yourself one thing now that you've learned that you would want to tell your second grade self, what would you tell your second grade self?
I think I would tell my second grade self, well, probably not go get snacks every day, because that doesn't make you the best reader in the world. But do what you have to do. Like, you have to be okay with that. But I think if I had to go back and tell educators, I would say give voice and choice to kids. I'm pretty old. So when I was going through school, that teachers weren't trained that way. And so I had amazing teachers, and I love them all of them from the bottom of my heart. And so I know they didn't do anything to traumatize me, but it's just interesting how my reflection back to those years, and how my thought then the rest of my career was, how quick can I get out of school? I wish my focus hadn't have been that. I wish my focus would have been enjoying being young and being there and reading. And so I think that would be different, but I would tell my second grade self to just find a good book. Find one that you like, instead of being upset that you're having to read. I've read more probably in the last 2 years than I've read my entire life.
Wow.
Which is sad, because I'm pretty old. But now I've read all of your books. I think Dave Burgess is consulting. I think I have every one of his books almost. But currently reading the Be Real book by Tara Martin, which is good. And so there's always a book sitting with me, sitting around me. And that wasn't the case a long time ago. And my daughters will even laugh about it once in a while. They're like, Mom, we've never seen you read that much before. But I've just come to the point that I've found who I am, and what my calling is, and why my calling is what it is. And it just took a while to get there.
Are your parents surprised that you're an educator?
Well, yes. My dad being the public school administrator, I kind of am my dad in a female version. And my mom is a teacher as well, like I said. So I don't know that they're as surprised, but I saw somebody that I hadn't seen. I was helping my daughter with a fundraiser she's going to Puerto Rico on a mission trip this summer. And we were helping at a fundraiser at a cattle show, because I live in Northwest Missouri. And I saw a man that I hadn't seen in probably 30 years. And I looked at him and I smiled, and we talked for a little bit in these days. And I said, you won't believe me. And I told him, and he started laughing, because he's like, you're right. I would have never believed that when you were little. And so I think the people that know me from, when I was little growing up probably are a bit shocked. But I think it all turned out for the good.
I heard you mention your faith earlier. What role does that play in keeping your sanity as an administrator or educator?
So I will tell you that that's huge. Lots of prayers, lots of peace, I think, is what has come with that. Before a couple years ago, I wasn't really counting down my years, because I love what I do, but I kind of knew what my plan was.
Mm-hmm.
And I love so much of what I'm doing now because I have the peace, and just asking for guidance. And what do I say to some of these children that need me the most, and they show me in the most inappropriate ways? So what can I do for them? What can I say to them? Like, God, please give me the words so that I can, get through the day or get through this act, or but I'm calmer. I am probably a complete different person than I was a few years ago. I think, anybody that knew me before would say that, and for the better, just calmer.
If you were not an educator right now, what do you think you would be doing instead?
I would be a missionary in an orphanage.
Wow, I love that.
And I don't even have a place in mind,
mm-hmm.
but that would be my goal. That would be where I would be.
Before I became an educator, I always thought that I was going to work in CPS or CASA for Kids or something like that. But I have such a difficult time disconnecting emotionally from the things that those kids are going through, and to deal with it on that kind of level. I realized very quickly that I could not. I mean, I even have trouble as an administrator now disconnecting from some of the stories you hear, because as a teacher, I think that's one thing people forget about administration. As a teacher, you'll hear some of those stories sometimes with the students that you have in your classroom. But as an administrator, when you're dealing with an entire campus, you hear way more that you have to take home and carry, because you can't tell anybody else. And you can't tell anybody you called CPS, or that mother cried in your office, or that dad was hiding his kid around the corner so that so-and-so couldn't find him, or like all these crazy things that I would have never thought of as a teacher. But that is like an everyday occurrence for an administrator. Knowing some of that weight that you carry, how do you not let it consume you?
Well, I'm not going to say it doesn't consume me. What I'll say is I have the power of prayer now to give that to my kids, and be able to just lift it to God and say, I'm doing everything I can in my earthly place and my calling that He's given me here. And now I just need His help, and the kids need His help. My husband and I have had other children live with us through school connections, to try to help them a little bit and to give families some support. And so, then it is more than just being at work. It's doing what you have to do no matter when you have to do it. And my connection with kids can be so powerful that it's super hard. Just like you said, it's super hard to pull away from it emotionally. You think about it quite a bit. You go home and you just worry, and there's just it wears you out. And I think that like I said earlier, prior to a couple of years ago, when now that I'm able to give it to God, there was a few times I thought maybe a mental breakdown might happen at some point. I mean, because it just gets so wearing that and it's only because we love the kids. We know that. We just want what's best for them. And
it's totally what people don't understand about educators is when we go home, we don't shut it off. Like, it's not something you can turn off like some of these other jobs that people have. Like, if I were to go work at Taco Bell, I could go do work all day and then go home and be like, forget Taco Bell, I'm home now. Whereas with school, it's like, I can forget the schoolwork, or I can say I'm going to put that to tomorrow, but I can't forget that kid or that staff member or that family or any of that. It's a totally different kind of thing to wrap your brain around about how emotionally draining it can be, but at the same time, emotionally fulfilling. Like that's the thing. It's like, it's not a completely negative thing. Like, there's so many wonderful things that keep you going as an educator that it's a good trade-off.
Yeah. I have been, I've just started recently posting to our school Facebook page, students with their celebrations and celebrating whatever it is they want to celebrate with me. And then each week I draw a teacher's name and I pick a child out of that classroom, and they come down and they celebrate their teacher. So some of those more positive things I'm trying to just put on the forefront. I haven't uploaded yet because I was waiting until after I talked to you tonight, but I'm going to start. Well, I've already recorded the first episode of a podcast called Believe, and Believe stands for Believe Every Life is Essential, Valued, and Empowered. And I'm talking to children about what is it about your educational environment that has made you feel essential in the classroom, valued as a person, and empowered to have a say in your learning? And then what do you want educators to know? And I think hearing from the youth is amazing. Our scholars are so smart, and we can learn so much from them if we just take the time to do so. I recorded the first one last night, and I've got another recording tomorrow night, so front filling that a little bit, and then it'll go live. So
I'm excited for you.
Yes, well, there's several of you that have kind of encouraged me to do that, and just listening to your Tell Your Story podcast is what made me reach out and say I probably need to tell my story. And like I told you earlier, there's going to be tons of people watching that have no idea what this story is, because it's just, I'm kind of keep everything to myself type of person. But if one Melanie Ward in a second grade classroom or third grade or fifth grade or whatever grade can be met by giving that child some flexibility and choice in what they're doing, then I need to say that.
I completely agree. And and I love that, you and I have connected before, but I love that you reached out and said, you know what, I think I'm ready to tell a piece of this, because that's what I love. I love finding guests who it's their first time being brave in that way or sharing that, because every episode I do with Tell Your Story is just a constant reminder for me about how similar we all are and how all these things bring us together. And every single story that I've heard on this podcast has just made me feel closer to people and not further away, even though their experiences are very different than mine most of the time. But, Melanie, I want to end on one final question, and I want to ask if there was one thing that you wish more people knew or understood, what is your one thing?
I think my one thing would just be that they understood that kids have so much more knowledge and so much more power than what we ever give them, that if we just give them the opportunity, we're raising some amazing children. And I just want people, the one thing I would want them to know is to just hear what they have to say.
I love that. That is such a perfect way to end. Melanie, I love your work that you're doing so much, and I really appreciate you showing some bravery and wanting to get out there and tell this. So thank you for agreeing to come on and be my guest tonight.
Thank you so much. I'll see you in Dallas.
Yes, that's right. And thank you so much for everybody listening or watching. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. Hope you join me every week as I bring you another guest in the hope that you hear something that connects with you, that inspires you, and that teaches you to get out there and tell your story, because every story matters. Have a great night, everyone.